All right, I think we'll get kicked off, and as people filter in, I'll let them in as well. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first CX community event that we're running in 2022. Can't believe it is 2022 already. It only seems like we blinked and it was 2019. So very exciting. Looking forward to the new year, and what a way to kick off with this fantastic topic of creating internal influencers to drive change. I'm Richard Kennedy. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Arcet Global, and we run the Customer Centricity World Series, which is an awards program which brings together the best stories of customer experience from around the world. The entries are closing on Friday, so if you do know of anybody who's looking to get recognition for their CX stories, they've got until Friday to register. You get up to 3 categories for free, but don't worry, they have plenty of time to actually complete the entry forms. It's just the registration needs to be done by this Friday. So our agenda today, I'm just going to do a quick welcome, and then I'll introduce you to Olga and David, who are joining us today. And then we'll start with our opening statements on that topic, and then it's an open discussion. So in terms of the housekeeping for the open discussion, please keep yourself on mute until we do open up the floor. And then from then on, you can either raise your hand using the Zoom function or just dive in and jump in with any of your comments or questions for the panel. I'll be moderating, so if we do get 2 people jumping in at the same time, I'll delegate who will go first, just to keep it all nice and friendly and nice and simple. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to David and Olga, who are actually both judges for the awards as well. So David, would you like to go first and introduce yourself?
Ladies first, eh?
Okay.
Always the gentleman.
Okay. So hello, ladies and gentlemen. My pleasure meeting you, and it's a double pleasure to see familiar faces, Christopher, Gregorio. Hello. And yes, my name is Olga. I'm based in St. Petersburg, Russia. I run my own consulting company called Integria Consult, and we basically work in Russia with the largest Russian companies and also work internationally. And I'm also proud to be actively participating in International CX Live, being part of CXPA global community and joining the regional European Council of CXPA. And also I'm very proud to judge a number of international CX competitions, including European Customer Experience Awards and CX World Series.
Thanks, Olga.
I guess
David?
that's enough.
That's great. It's going to be difficult to come up with. Now, I'm Dave Savage, originally from Dayton, Ohio. I live in the Netherlands. I set up TIOC, the Experience of Customers, back in 2018, actually 2017, and launched in 2018. Spent a career in sales, strategic marketing, business development. But before that, I spent 6 years in the Air Force, and the American Air Force, and got into total quality management and process analyzation. And basically, through this whole period over the years, I've evolved more and more into the world of customer experience and change. And that's really what TIOC is all about, and helping companies achieve their objectives by looking at customer experience from a strategic perspective, from a technology perspective, and from a perspective of behavior. And through those 3 elements, basically, we're continually looking on helping companies achieve their goals and becoming more customer centric. And I've been one of the judges as well with our partnership with Arcet. Since 3 years now we've been with Arcet, and before that also the previous relationship. So I think it's my 5th year, I believe. And I believe Olga and we met 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. So and all of a sudden it's 2022, and here we go.
Awesome. Well, welcome to you both, and thank you so much for giving up your time this morning to share your thoughts with us. And it's an awesome topic that we've got this morning, which Olga came up with, which is about creating internal influencers to drive change. And I think we talk a lot there's a lot of talk, especially with marketers, about influencers and how influencers can help market your product and create that influence and drive your product and help your customers. And I think creating internal ones is something that I've not really heard before, but I guess it's something that has been happening forever. But it's how do we do that consciously? And I think it's a really fun topic to discuss with the group this morning. So Olga, it was your idea. So do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on this?
Okay, so yes, why I believe this topic is really important is in order to make real change, not changing something small, like a little detail, but really transform the organization, you need more than just do something within a CX department. Of course, you can fine-tune your measurement system, you can change the sample of people you poll when you get customer insights. But if you really want to go big into the change, you need to have everyone involved. Like real hardcore people like finance, commercial, operations, logistics. And these people are really hard to convince because they have their own job to do. And in order to drive change throughout the organization, you really need to influence basically every department within the company. And then the question comes how to do it. Because you don't really have, being a CX professional, even having a CX department and even reporting directly to CEO, you frequently have a budget, some responsibilities, but you need much more than that. You need influence all across the organization. So, and basically, I would say when we talk to CX professionals across the globe and in Russia, this topic frequently comes in, that I know how to do things. I know how to change something within my own department, how to change, for example, measurement system. But how do I influence salespeople so that they change the process? How do I influence finance team that they communicate with the customers differently? This is one of the hardest topics people are facing. And it's really important to understand the ways how to execute not only your management power, but really being an influencer within the organization.
Awesome. Great intro. And David, what's your thoughts on that?
I second all of what she said. From my experience, the reality is oftentimes we work, she didn't say the word specifically, but it's silos, right? What we have a lot of times, we have different multi streams within a company and have silos that are creating divides, and they're all approaching the strategic objectives of a company from their own perspective. And what I really try to work on is asking the question why, but I do that, I guess you could say, vertically. So the W is, what are we trying to achieve? The H is, how does it benefit our customers? And the why is you, what's in it for you? And by addressing each and everything we do from that perspective, really in trying to create the business value add to everybody in the organization, whether it's finance, whether it's sales, whether it's services, logistics, or all across the board, HR, making sure everybody understands what it means to them, but also what their contribution is to making a difference. People need to feel like they are involved. It just goes to the old adage, if you tell somebody to do something, and you just say, hey, we need to do this, they're probably going to ignore it in time. They're going to go back to what they were doing before. If you show them what you want to accomplish, they might remember some of it. But if you involve them, they will understand. And when people create a collective understanding of what you're trying to achieve, you really drive change. And that's really in the fundamental DNA of what I've become, I guess you could say, where some of our experiences and parts and everything else. And that's really the way I approach it. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a certain place you need to begin creating influence in an organization? Does it need to be from leadership and filter down? Does it need to be from the mid managers and influencing down and up? Or should it be from the front line and then?
Olga, may I don't know if typically from my experience, I think you have to have somebody with leadership level qualities within the company. have a leadership position. I think personally, it makes a big difference when somebody is actually at the C-level table that owns customer experience, although all too often customer experience is a mid-level marketing manager's role, and it's not at the seat of the table for the company leadership. And that's where it really becomes a challenge. I think you have to have leadership involved from the get-go. You have to have key stakeholders. You have to have people that are owning what the business value is. The bottom line is, if you don't have business value involved in whether you're doing, you're not going to get any leverage in the company. Then it becomes a nice to have.
Yeah, I would echo what David is saying, that really leadership support is essential, because if you don't get it, you are not perceived seriously within the organization, and that means you cannot bring substantial change. And we sometimes as consultants face the situation when a CX professional comes to us, he or she full with ideas, what needs to be changed, and he or she fully understands the importance and how to do it. But there is not enough weight of this person within the organization. Yeah. And top management is just saying, well, yeah, that's great, nice to have, but at the moment we have other priorities. And then we regret to say no to this organization, that we cannot go into the change program, into consulting project, unless we get management support. Otherwise, everyone will just gonna waste time, energy, and money, and the change is not gonna happen. So I would say the first step in making sure the change program works is to ensure we get a leadership support, like real support, not just, as one of my colleagues loves to say, leap work, but really real support that management is ready to take difficult decisions, unpopular decisions, and financially painful decisions.
No, I think
real
actually,
commitment.
Yeah, and part of that, I think, is to that end, Olga, I think it needs to be a part of the company values, literally at the heart of it. And I'm not talking about the marketing values, the ones you see on the billboard signs. I'm talking about the ones in the core in the organization. Richard, Mark, and I from Arcat, we talked about company values a couple of years ago when this whole thing about COVID started coming forward. And it's easy to talk about how much customer experience means to you as an organization when you've got the wins behind you, when you've got the sales behind you, you've got success behind you. But when you've got wind in your face and you've got difficulty in your face, what stands up? What really defines who you are? What are your principles? And principles meaning not in principle, I'll do something and then do something else. No, what really stands up to you, to who you are and who you are as a company, as a person, as a product. What are your values? What are pillars of your organization? And when you have that on one side, and on the other side, you're supporting that with business value. Now you've got sufficient drive to give leadership the tools they need to wave the flag.
I think a lot of those companies that have those billboard slogans but aren't following through are definitely being exposed at the moment with the COVID situation. And those companies that still have, due to COVID-19, you may experience some delays with our service, etc., etc. Yeah. I think that just speaks volumes for the companies that
or laying thousands of people off via a Zoom call.
Or that, exactly. So influencing the top level of the organization, how would you go about doing that? How would you suggest for people that are looking to get that leadership buy-in who maybe don't have that at the moment? What would you suggest would be the first steps for them to do that?
David, you want to go on this?
It's up to you. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't know if it was your topic today, so.
Well, basically, I'd love to share with you one story that I've heard a couple of years ago before the COVID era, and it came from the far east of Russia, which is actually from St. Petersburg, where I'm located, is an 8-hour flight. So it is as far as United States from us. But the story really struck me. And it was a story about the owner of a network of pharmacies. And this gentleman, he was really like, he had founded this pharmacy and it grew into a huge network in that part of Russia. And he was always saying that his company is about health and about helping people. But what actually happened at one moment of time is that within the assortment of product these pharmacies were offering were little bottles with high content of strong alcohol, with some, like, I don't know, berries or herbs. And unfortunately, in that part of the country, some people are using it just as an alcohol to drink it. And sometimes it gets dangerous. And the management of the company really knew that it is happening, and they knew that it brings a substantial revenue to this network of pharmacies. And basically, the company was making money on this. But the owner of the company have said, you know what, we are about health and we're not going to sell these products, despite the fact that they are very profitable. And he came to the board meeting and said, in 3 months, we need to take this product out of our assortment. And the financial director and commercial director said, how come we have about 40% of the profit based on these products? But then the owner says, well, you know, it contradicts our values, so we're not going to sell it. And imagine what? They managed to do it in 3 months. They managed to replace these products with other products, with other pharmaceutical medicine or things that help the company maintain the profitability. And they have actually got a lot of positive feedback from the customers, saying that thank you very much for removing these products. We really believe you now, that you stand for your values. And it's not just saying and stating that we are fighting and we are supporting health. This is really what you are doing. And basically, when we talk, some other people were seeing these bottles as happiness. Some people definitely did, but the majority of people realized it could be harmful. So talking about how to convince top manager that they really need it, for me, it's not really about convincing. It's really about aligning the goals. Because if people have, like, if top management has it in their heads, then it's an easy work to do. Like, it's just about aligning the whole organization along these values, along these goals, and making sure all departments within the company just see this link. This is our mission and values. These are the KPIs of my departments. And these are things, specific things I need to do to make it happen. And then it's, again, as David is saying, it's really breaking up the silos, and it aligns everyone to the common purpose. But if you are trying to convince someone that it's really needed, basically the first step is that you not really negotiate, but you really agree with top management that it is within their values, that they see the value of it. Because if they don't, I mean, it's going to be a hard game to do.
Good example, very good example. My example is with Vodafone, actually. I spent several years with CX should be transversal in a company. Agreed. That's absolutely the case. It should very much be part of HR. It should be part of everybody within the company, in the DNA of the company. That's what part of what I meant by values. And to drive that point home, going back to my story, I worked with Vodafone for about 5 years, and working from a customer experience, set up their customer experience center in Amsterdam. And as I came on board there, they did something internally that what would be possibly considered to be incredibly unpopular. The staff functions, staff management functions, people had company cars. And they said, you know, if you're working in the office, you don't need a company car. And they pulled them back in. The reasoning behind it was we support a better environment. We support lower CO2, lower fossil fuels. We want to support green. We want to support people being, you know, the environment and being much more mobile, remote working, and that type of thing as well. And instead of just putting it on billboard signs, so to speak, or in banners and then trying to push it off to the customers. They started with themselves, saying, how are we going to be able to convince the market that this is a better way to go, to use the products, services, or whatever that we're promoting, if we're not able to take this step ourselves? So they did, and they started with the cars, but they also went with a paperless environment. And instead of having a printer and copy machine, I guess you could say, for, I think it was one for every 6 or 8 people previously, they had a printer set up. They literally made one per floor, and you had to go to the printer to print stuff out, and people realized quite quickly, oh, I don't need to print everything else. I can have it digitally. And you could always see the new people coming on board because they had the heavy book bags with paper. And as people become more involved in the company, they realize I don't need to have all that all over the place. With paper, we build walls. So because then you have to have cabinets to store things. But if everything's digitalized, you don't have to have that anymore. So you can lower the amount of office space you need. And it becomes a journey in which it started with the cars, but it really, really evolved as time went on. But people understood, what's in it for me? Why are we doing this? Giving me purpose. And then that sense of purpose is something that's essential to creating an understanding from people. And then when you do promote it outside, it becomes part of their story. So it's not just a matter of selling a product or a service. It's saying, this is what we stand for. And if, it's that type of reason also that I bought an electric car. Why? Because I want now, I identify myself with that thought process. I want to make sure that I'm trying to do what I can to contribute. Is it a perfect situation? Is an electric car completely void of all pollution? No, of course not. But I'm trying to do what I can to contribute in my way.
Continue the topic of instilling this culture within the organization. You really cannot convince leaders, but you can develop the leaders and develop their understanding.
Very well said.
That it's really important.
Very well said.
And I really love the story that my colleague and mentor Ian Golding told once in one of his trainings. He was talking about the telecom operator that works in UK, and it's a small company, and they have hired a new CX director. And this lady was coming to the board meetings, and each time they were discussing some projects related to equipment renewal or new financial system. She was consistently asking just one single question: what does it mean for the customer? At first few meetings, everyone was really confused. So why this lady is asking these strange questions? We are talking about technological change, or we are talking about financial procedure. But then the owner of the company, the CEO, have supported her, and he started asking these questions. So next time, when someone was bringing up the project about new business process, he was asking, what does it mean for the customer? Because they were asked this question, people start getting prepared. And after a while, when somebody was coming to the board meeting with a new proposal, he came prepared with the answer to this question. If we do this technological improvement, that's going to make our speeds better or connection more stable, etc. In order to do so, these department heads had to come to their employees and start asking the very same question. What does it mean for the customer? If you propose we need to replace this, I don't know, part of the cable, what does it mean? And gradually, this system and this culture of asking, what does it mean for customer, became the part of the culture of the company.
Yeah,
and basically, it brought massive change. And I can tell you from our consulting experience in Russia, for example, a lot of banks, when they had like a form that you need to fill out to approve the project, any project, there is a part related to customer. And each project that you submit for approval, for a budgeting, it needs to have this part filled out. What does it mean for the customer? What value will it bring to the customer? And again, this is the way to influence and to bring it to the culture of the company.
What I think is also important to that, and I agree with you 100%, Olga, but what I do believe is essential, and that is to challenge that. We have a tendency to oftentimes think that what we do, our products and services, that our intentions are possibly good. I'm saying possibly good because a lot of times it's very much focused internally on an internal customer or a process to make things more efficient. Typically speaking, a lot of things that are about efficiency have very little to do with the actual customer experience. Okay, we need at a certain point, there's two sides to the coin. You can shave as much as you want off the one side on the cost side, but it's going to have at a certain point, there's going to be a tipping point where it's going to have a negative effect on the experience side. And then you need to start looking at, okay, where do we need to really focus our energy? Is it cost cutting or is it an adding value? So that's the difficulty there. But what I was wanting to get back to, the challenge is when we get into a situation in which we're going in this journey with looking to how we can bring CX to the table and value to the table, to challenge that and to actually discuss it with customers, discuss it with our internal customers as well. I see employees as internal customers, but external customers, and we do a lot of customer focus interviews. To give you an idea, over the past 3 years, 4 years, about 40% of our business is really about research and doing these interviews and creating reports and creating an understanding and taking those into the workshops, and really as being as a basis for all the strategies. It's not like we invent the strategies out of thin air. A lot of times the customers really know what, in their heart of hearts, what they want, but they have difficulty in getting it to the table because they're stuck in their own silos. And when we're presenting a new initiative, what Olga was mentioning, and you take that to these different silos within an organization, you ask them about the customer value, and then you challenge that with their customers. Sometimes you get a totally different picture internally and externally of what that business value, perceived business value is. And sometimes it creates an incubator to create even more value. And that's exciting. I think it's important to challenge.
Yeah, I think we have there's a lot of companies, especially around sustainability, that are talking a big game, but not necessarily following through.
Yep.
The latest sort of thing that I've seen in the news was about Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One driver, selling one of his supercars because he wanted to be more green. And I'm pretty sure he probably sold it on his multi-million-pound yacht and flew there on a private jet to Monaco, and then he's going to go back racing his car. So it's all well and good saying these things, but can you actually follow through and instill those values deep down? So this conversation is completely open. So if anybody wants to jump in with any comments, Frederick, thanks for jumping in on the chat there. If anybody wants to jump in with their thoughts and unmute themselves and jump in on the conversation, please don't be shy.
Hi, it's Frederick here. So I'll kick off with the conversation. So I'm running myself a small CX organization in Brussels, Belgium. What maybe I didn't hear too much is that what I think is very important, because David, you talked about C-level support, is that there must be also a very good business case behind this, because people want to have financial outcomes, of course. They want to know, okay, what it's all very well that we do a CX program or that we have a CX department, but in the end, what will be the benefit for a company related to extra revenue, less costs, and more efficiency? So I think that's sometimes in a lot of CX discussions a part that's well, not always too much discussed.
Olga and I both mentioned business value, and I think we both both mean by that is being able to present a business case, because you can't create, otherwise it's hot air, right? If you're just saying, oh, it's got business value and you don't have a case to back it up, then basically it's BS. Without going into further detail of what BS means, I think we all know. So I think that's very, very obvious when you're in a discussion with somebody, if you can't back it up with a case, then you're really not going to get anybody's time of day.
And,
So
and
Olga?
I just wanted to add that because we talk about influence today, we do influence with numbers. If you want to be influential within the organization, if you want to have influence on finance people, on commercial people, we need to talk numbers, and we need to present strong business case that proves that it works for the customer and it works for the business.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's about the equation. It's not one way. And really, I wanted to share with you one more story from Russia this time. This is also a telecom operator, one of the leading ones in the country. And what they have developed is actually the system that allows them to exactly know what level of NPS they want to maintain in every region of Russia. And they know that if they go below that optimal level, they are in risk of delivering inferior customer experience. But if they go too high, it gets too expensive. The customer doesn't really see the value.
Yep.
And we are spending extra money on things that doesn't matter for the customers. And this is, in my way, it's a very, like, they have the data, they can play with it and build these statistical models, but this is the approach probably every company shall be looking into, like know these limits on the downside and on the upside. When it's too low to be too customer experience is inferior, and when it gets too high and too expensive for the company.
Very good points, Olga. To answer Katka, thank you for your comment. It's always difficult to connect CX activities to overall business results. I agree with you. I think it's important to take note. Something I learned early on in my career, if you don't want to solve a problem, just make it bigger. So I think it's what's important is, while we talk about making sure we have messaging that resonates across the different work streams, in the different departments within a company, it's important that the philosophy resonates, but specific CX activities and business cases are probably still going to be limited to one or two work streams on a business value perspective. Very few things have a overall all-encompassing business value in that regard. But when you take several, it's like building a wall. You don't build a wall out of one brick, right? You have to have many bricks along the way to build it up, but through that you build the wall you need. I think it's important that you focus your messaging on the business case, the specific department you're working with, and then trying to share what that value is so people understand it, make it understood by others, but they don't necessarily don't expect buy-in, I guess you could say, to have involvement from every other work stream. Does it make sense? I hope so.
Makes sense, David. I'm just chiming in on the point of, and I think it's been mentioned several times now that you do need to engage the broader, stakeholder community across the different silos.
Yep.
And I think one aspect that folks struggle with, and it's a very key point, is that you need to talk the language of that particular silo. So if you're talking to finance or your marketing or HR, they all speak different languages.
Absolutely.
And you all need to agree on and come up with KPIs that appeal to them. And you need to translate, because in terms of measures that need to be undertaken and adjusted to improve that customer experience, that needs to be translated into measures also that appeal and speak to them in their silo. I think once you speak that language, the chances of getting them on board and supportive are definitely going to be better.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
Gregorio, you had your hand up a little bit earlier.
Yes, but it's really linked to what Steve is saying. I think one key topic, and perhaps I missed one piece because I had internet connection issues, but it's speaking the language of the people that we are talking to. It means if we speak with the marketing department, then it's about acquisition perhaps. and trying to speak their language and the way they want to see things. If you're speaking with the CFO, sorry to say, most of the CFOs don't care about NPS, customer effort score, and so on, because they don't understand it or they don't need to understand it. But if you can start linking that with financial KPIs, also with the easiest possible correlation, then it's really sound. It's helped them to understand and to get the support. And we spoke a lot about top management support. We need to talk with them because these are the people that take the decisions. But I think extremely important is also to motivate the team. It means the employees in the innovation department, but also in the contact center, and explain them why we are doing that. And again, speaking their language, because if we are speaking about cost cutting, it's quite easy and said that, but they need to understand that. A lot of companies introduced robotics process automation, what clearly means that we try to cut costs. And if we explain to the employees before doing that, why we are doing that, and also what are the boundaries, the decisions around that, they are really supportive. I did that and it worked pretty well.
Thank you, Gregorio. I think it's also important to take note that people want to feel like they are valued, that they're listened to. And while we do promote KPIs and that type of thing, and it's essential to have measurements. I understand that, I get it. But I think people have to really, and you said it quickly, but it's essential that people understand, why are we measuring this, and really giving them an understanding of why that measurement is important. And even if it is what you said from an efficiency perspective, for instance, but through that efficiency, what value tree can you create that's going to bring value to the customer? Because at the end of the day, if it's efficiency for efficiency's sake, and it's not helping the customer, then really you need to question whether or not it's something that's going to be positive, bring positive value to your company. There's a lot of departments, and I've met a lot of people along the way that have a tendency to make jobs for themselves continuously by creating change for the sake of change. Whereas sometimes slowing down, stopping, observing, and creating an understanding with people and actually communicating with people is going to make a bigger difference than going out and just trying to just shake things up. In this world of change, we've become babies of change, right? We're continuously in this environment of change. We need to make sure we're not doing it just for the sake of change. We slow down to speed things up. And Steve knows very well, I said that 1,000 times when I was within Vodafone also, slow down to speed things up, because we have a tendency to go full bore. We need to do this, we need to do that. And we've got 1,000 different projects in the air at any given moment. But by slowing down and taking pause and looking at all these different things that we have going on, what is their underlying effect? And a very good example of that, really on a personal level, really, my wife works at a pharmacy, and although the prescriptions come in there and people come in with one prescription, but the pharmacy looks at all the other drugs, all the other medicines somebody's taking. Okay, see whether or not there's any conflicting medications in there that are going to affect them. We don't have that view ourselves. So we're dealing with that one medicine. We're dealing with that change ourselves. The things what you just mentioned right there, Gregorio. We've got a new project coming on, and that's my project. But what are the other impacts of the other things behind the scenes that I'm already doing? Are we aware of those things going on? And that, to me, is one of the biggest contributors or enemies of change, because we don't slow down to take those things into account. Sorry, it was just rattling off several different thoughts that came up at the same time.
Yeah, just to support what you have said, we recently had a discussion. We are now running in Russia a big course for CX professionals, and we had a fantastic discussions there exactly about influence. And we had an international guest, and he shared a fantastic idea that nobody loves extra work. I mean, really difficult to understand that you will love person who comes and says, well, you know what? You have your responsibilities. Say you have to sell something or, I don't know, service the customers. And then somebody says and comes, well, in addition to that, you also have to do this, 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 and this. So these are extra responsibilities I'm bringing to you. Nobody loves that. But what people really love is when someone comes and makes their life easier. And this is what CX also can do within the organization, is not bringing extra work to people, but relieving people from the work that doesn't bring value to the customers. Streamlining the processes, removing unnecessary features, and really helping people do less so that they can concentrate on important things.
Agreed. Agreed. Absolutely. Katka, you just posted a question. Do you please have a real case study that increasing NPS promoters increases in the long term the financial results? Absolutely. Many case studies, as a matter of fact, and I can talk for hours about that and really justify from many different market segments, whether that's the telecom market, wholesale goods, for retail goods, food, whatever, you name it.
Yeah, I think the internet is awash with positive business cases for NPS. On a critical note, though, I mean, NPS is coming under some pressure, I think, in the CX world in terms of, is that, going forward still the single most attractive, best, CX score that we should be managing and steering against versus some of the other ones. Even Bain, which came up, and Reichfeld, which came up with the NPS, have recently kind of reissued as an NPS 2.0 score. Yeah, if you could. So it's a moving target. The only thing I would like to add is just, I've used NPS as well, but there's other very good and effective KPIs out there.
But if it's stuck as a mid-level marketing manager, if it's stuck as a tick in the box exercise for a mid-level marketing manager, then I guarantee you the NPS is going to have a totally different meaning. It's going to be not producing success. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. It has to have, NPS needs to be owned by somebody at the C-level suite, at the seat of the table, and then it has actual meaning, whether it's NPS or a CSAT score or a different mechanism, I guess you could say, or a measurement that's really focusing on the customer experience and focusing on creating a positive change with the perception of your customers about you. It's not what we say about ourselves that's important. It's what our customers say about us.
It's framing that question in the right way as well.
Agreed.
Going back to Ian Golding, Olga's mentioned him before, but he's got a great story about a bank. I can't remember where it is, but it's that they were asking their loan customers the simple NPS question, would you recommend us for a loan? And they got the scores back and it was something like 98 or something ridiculous. And he was like, well, it's a great score, but how are you asking this? And it turns out that they were only asking the question, would you recommend us to get a loan, if they had successfully been given a loan. So they hadn't asked any of the questions to the people who hadn't been given the loan, who were refused. They only asked the people that were successful and got given the money. So of course they're going to recommend. So yeah, it's about framing that NPS question in the right way as well.
Or the people that defaulted on their loans because they were overextended.
Exactly.
Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. So yes, you got the loan. You might be happy for that moment, but 6 months or 6 years down the line, depending upon what the loan was. Yeah.
Christopher, you've got a question or comment?
Thank you, Olga. I wasn't sure of the protocol, so I thought I'd just keep popping my hand up. Just getting back to that point that Gregorio mentioned and Steve did as well about understanding the motivations of the different silos. And I think it is important to be able to understand their language. But I think customer experience is this terrible habit of rocking up like a peacock with our crazy claims and stories. And the reality is, I can fix this stuff that you're bringing to me anyway. I'll go about it my conventional way. I'm empowered to do things on behalf of the customer, and I've seen a great CX strategy document that gives me that. but why am I going to do it your way? You know, you need to inspire me. And I think that's what we need to do as practitioners. We have to help those in those silos feel this is a better way of doing it than they were going to do it already. You know, we have to help them understand what are the outcomes you want to achieve, and demonstrate, not just talk, but demonstrate working with them how by focusing on being customer centric, they will achieve the outcomes they're hoping to in a better way, which inspires them to say, I want to do more of that stuff.
Yeah.
I want to do it. I can't believe, and I think this is where we have a real opportunity. You can work with organizations who have very conventional ways of working. They've grown up with, you know, Kaizen and other methodologies, total quality management, and they've been achieving stuff. And at the end of the day, it's not actually delivered the long-term sustainable change they wanted. With customer centricity, we can change all of that to help them really see, wow, I get there, and I get there in a way that I feel inspired to do more of it. I want to, and they become our biggest advocates. We want to do it in a different way. How do we do it more like this? So I think this is our responsibility now, is to move from the talk to actually showing the change. And if we can't demonstrate the change, you know, kind of, that's all right. If you've got a shop and you've got 1,000 people queuing out the door, why do you need customer centricity? Because you've actually got an audience that's bigger than the demand you can fulfill. Go away, come back when there's fewer people there. We've got to really be sure about the value that we can add and help others in these silos to start to find new ways.
And who our audience is to begin with. You know, I went back to the States in October and visited with my family, and my mom's 75 years old. And she, 76 years old, sorry. She just closed up her business in November. She just stopped. She has an art gallery, or had an art gallery. And we were going through, I was explaining to her what I do. You know, so she was interested in, you know, what's TIAC doing now. And I went through a presentation with her, and she's like, this is what you have to do as a sole proprietor, or having a small company. We do this every day, otherwise we're bankrupt. It's, you know, the CX and all the abbreviations and all the measurements and all that stuff. A lot of times it's really about larger companies, when you've got more and more initiatives within the company, more and more drivers within the company, different focus points, and then all of a sudden we've got department heads. And that's when CX really is a bonding agent throughout the company. That's what I just wanted to try to bridge between all the different departments. I see a hand, Farhan.
Yes, hi, hello everyone. Hello from sunny Dubai. Olga, good to see you. Richard, Frederick, a lot of good people are here. Gregory and David, thank you very much. Great conversation going on. I was really enjoying it. And I was just relating it to my previous work as head of customer experience. I was, you know, involved in all these kind of discussions with all the stakeholders. And I'm just going to talk about some other aspect of it, which is the recognition of the results. So when you achieve a certain result in NPS scores, or in the end, the organization wins an award, unfortunately, all the stakeholders feel that they don't get the recognition that the customer experience unit gets. So if you win an award and say, a certain bank or an organization now has won a certain award, the organization goes and recognizes the customer experience team, and then they feel that they're left out. And how do you go and explain to those department, which is back-end department, operations, which has played such an important part, HR, which has played such an important part to making customers happy, but recognition, when it comes to the recognition, yes, KPI is a different thing. They might be get rewarded for that, but recognition is a very different thing. So I have seen that that's where some of the disconnect comes in. That's the end result of it.
Good point. You know, and a lot of organizations that are also very sales driven, a lot of times it's the salespeople that are getting the accolades. Well, it's a lot of people behind the scenes. Some of the best salespeople are service people with a hammer and a toolbox, and they're the ones that are instilling trust with their customers day in and day out. But they don't necessarily get the accolades that sales does, but that shows up with the contract. But the relationship building, the people behind the scenes with the inside support, that type of thing, that answer the call at 6 o'clock in the morning because the systems are down and they need to get things back up again before everybody else gets to the office. Those people need to be really rewarded. And it's really a matter of going out and making sure that everybody understands. It goes back to that DNA within an organization of what your values are. It goes back to making sure everybody understands how I contribute? How does my role contribute to making our customers happier? And by doing so, we give them, instill pride in them, and then reward them, communicate their achievements accordingly. If we're only rewarding sales for sales, then we're really missing a huge, huge opportunity within our organization.
Absolutely. We are approaching the end. We do have a hard stop at the hour. So I think what would be a nice way to sort of cap off this conversation is to ask you, David and Olga, what's the one thing, if somebody's a CX practitioner and they're looking for the one thing that they can do today to improve customer experience across the board, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them? So Olga, would you like to go first?
Yeah, that's a difficult question probably. But if I would be a CX practitioner that needs to drive real change in the organization, and my first step would be to come to the owner or CEO of the organization and just have a conversation. See what drives him or her. What are his values, her values? What brings this person to work every day, and relate it, how it connects to the business and to the customers. And then start building the whole system of alignment of these mission values and all the stuff we talked before. So talking to the owner or CEO, that would be my take on that.
Awesome. And David?
No, I can't add to that. That's perfect. Textbook. No, it's all across the board. No, it's perfect. Ask why. What are we trying to achieve? How does it affect the customer? You, what's in it for you? And that's it. Perfect.
I think we need to get that on a poster with your face, David, and start posting that around offices.
Nobody wants my face around offices.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Olga and David, for taking the time out of your day to join us this morning. I know that it's some of your first days back for 2022, so I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful year ahead. Hoping
please reach out via LinkedIn if you wish also.
Yep. This is a community, so feel free to search us all up and add us on LinkedIn and continue the conversation. And yes, thank you all for joining. You can have 6 minutes of your day back.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Guys.